Me okay?
We're good.
We're on? Aleph Bet Gimel, are we on? I think we're on right now. So we do have song sheets on the back table, and we'll start our service in just a moment as people gather the song sheets and find a seat. We have 2 different song sheets on the back table, and so help yourselves. And we'll begin this evening first in the Siddur on page number 5 with the Shalom Aleichem, and then we'll go back and forth a little bit between the song sheets and the Shalom Aleichem and the Siddur. For now, we're on page 5 in the Siddur. And the Siddur, and the prayer book. Page 5. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Asharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlochim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem l'shalom, malachei ashalom, malachei elyon. Mi melech malachei amlochim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu l'shalom, malachei ashalom, malachei elyon. Mi melech malachei hamlochim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Seitchem l'shalom, malachei ashalom, malachei elyon. Mi melech malachei amlochim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And we have some song sheets this evening. We'll begin with Hine Matov, the woman singing this song. Hine Matov is Sue Hurwitz. Hine Matov never goes out of style. Folks, it's good for us to always be together. And in light of the many different challenges that we've all experienced these past months, years, and may they eventually subside, we have to say how good it is that we can be together again. So, Hine Matov.
If we are willing to see, truly open our eyes, we'll find a soul.
שבר אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב, הנה מה טוב, ומה נעים ומה נעים. שבר אחים גם יחד.
And in the Siddur on page number 11, L'chun Ranana, in the Siddur on page number 11, L'chun Ranana. L'chun Ranana, L'chun Ranana, L'chun Ranana, L'Adonai, L'chun Ranana, L'chun Ranana, L'chun Ranana, L'Adonai. Naria, Naria, Letzor Yishenu, Nikadma Fana Bitoda. Naria, Naria, Letzor Yishenu, Vizmirad Naria Lo. L'chun Ranana, L'chun Ranana, L'chun Ranana, L'Adonai. L'chun Ranana, L'chun Ranana, L'chun Ranana, L'Adonai. Naria, Naria, Letzor Yishenu, Nikadma Fana Bitoda. Naria, Naria, Letzor Yishenu, Vizmira Naria Lo. L'chun Ranana, L'chun Ranana, L'chun Ranana, L'Adonai. L'chun Ranana, L'chun Ranana, L'chun Ranana, L'Adonai. Across the page. Let us go and sing to Adonai. Let us trumpet praise to our protector. Filled with thanks, let us greet God, raising our voice in song. Great is Adonai, a greater sovereign than all other deities. God's hands form the earth's deep. Mountain crests too are God's work. The sea is God's, for God made it. Dry land was fashioned by God's hands. Come then, let us bow and kneel. Let us bend our knees in the presence of Adonai, who formed us. Arbaim shana kut pedor v'amarm to'e lev avhem v'hem lo yidu drachai asher nishbati v'yapi im yavon el menuchati. And turn to the song sheet. It's I Turn to You by Rabbi Sherwin. And this is a takeoff of one of the Psalms. I Turn to You. Remember, the early part of the Friday evening service is a compilation of psalms, religious songs. So this evening, I Turn to You, Rabbi Sherwin.
I know I can't get very far, no matter how hard I try. Life pulls me away and down paths I don't know. Should I laugh or should I cry? But I look to the west and my mind seems to clear. I understand now what I need to hold dear. I lift my eyes to the mountains, and there I find you. I turn to you. I turn to you. Life's full of struggles of right and of wrong. You've given me the power to choose. Sometimes desire is found in a song. Despite the win, I pay the dues. We're connected by heart choice. I thank you, Adonai, for the still small voice. Esai El Elohim. I lift my eyes to the mountains, and there I find you. I turn to you. I turn to you in the momentary madness of my being. I turn to you in the opening of childbirth I have seen. I turn to you in my loneliest times. I turn to you and make you mine. Esai Yahvo Ezri, 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 Me'im, Adonai. Oseh Shemayim ve'aretz. I turn to you.
In the Siddur, on page 17 on the English side, page 17, the psalm in English. Sing to Adonai a new song, for Adonai has wrought wonders. God's right hand and holy arm have brought deliverance. Adonai declared deliverance. As nations looked on, and God's righteousness was revealed. God dealt faithfully and kindly with the house of Israel. The very ends of the earth saw our God's saving power. Call out to Adonai, all the earth. Break out in joyful singing. Sing to Adonai to the music of the lyre. Lyre and voices making music together. With horns and shofar cries. Trumpet the presence of the sovereign Adonai. Let the sea and all that is in it roar. The earth and all who inhabit it thunder. Let rivers clap hands while mountains sing in harmony. Greeting Adonai, who comes to judge the earth, judging the world with justice, the nations with truth. We have music, which are creations of human ingenuity. It's the lyre, the musical instruments. And we have the sea, and the ocean, and all the inhabitants thereof. And we have rivers and mountains, all singing together. It's teaching partnership. We are partnered with the entire world. And with that in mind, we're jumping a little bit, turning to page 82. Page 82. 82. It's a song, but it actually comes out of a teaching. It's the third line down on page 82. And the teaching is a phrase from a Hasidic rabbi, Rabbi Nachman, from the town of Bratslav. He taught Kol ha'olam kulo. The whole world is just a narrow bridge. V'ha'ikar, but the main thing is, don't be afraid. But if you think about it, how do you end up building a bridge? You need partners. You need people involved in and invested in the collaborative effort of building something so that all of us can get from point A to point B. And rarely are you and I traveling on a bridge all by ourselves. There's always somebody else. So when he's teaching Kol ha'olam kulo, the whole world is a narrow bridge. I think what he's also saying is that look around and see how you and I are part of something greater than ourselves, and as a result of that shared energy that we're together, we won't be afraid because we belong to something greater than ourselves. Kol ha'olam kulo, gesher tsar ma'od, va'ikar, lo lefached klal, the song.
Kol ha'olam kulo gesher tsar me'od, gesher tsar me'od, gesher tsar me'od. Kol ha'olam kulo gesher tsar me'od, gesher tsar me'od. V'ha'ikar, v'ha'ikar, lo lefached klal. 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 Kol ha'olam kulo gesher tsar me'od, gesher tsar me'od, gesher tsar me'od. Kol ha'olam kulo gesher tsar me'od, gesher tsar me'od.
And now turning to page 23, L'chadodi. We're here together, and we're welcoming Shabbat in song. So on page 23, the first three stanzas, page 25, the last stanza. We haven't sung this version of Craig Talmad's L'chadodi in a while. L'chadodi.
Lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekavela. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekavela. La 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 lecha dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekavela. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekavela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, Hishmi'anu el hameyuchad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, L'shemu tiferet v'litchila la 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 la. Lecha dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekavela. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekavela. Likrat Shabbat, lechu v'nelcha, ki hi mekor haberacha, mirosh mikedem nesucha, sov ma'aseh b'machshava tchila. La 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 la. Lecha dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekavela. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekavela. Mikdash melech ir melucha, kumitzei mitoch ha'hafecha, rav lach shevet be'emek habacha, vehu yachmol alaichem. La 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 la. Lecha dodi, לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי, לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. בואי ושלום, עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה. לך דודי, לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי, לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לה 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 לה. לך דודי, לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי, לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לה 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 לה. לך דודי, לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
לך דודי, לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבל. Shkoyach, folks. We are seated, turning to page 27, the Psalm for Shabbat, on page number 27. So this opening line says it's good to thank, but remember, when we use the word mizmor, which is a psalm, for thousands of years we've been singing our words, and this phrase is, it's good to sing with thanks. It's good to sing the message of thank you. And so there's a melody that I've shared, and you've learned by now. The opening line in Hebrew is Mizmor shir leyom hashabbat, tov lehodot ladonai, olezamer leshimcha elyon, olezamer leshimcha elyon, lehagid baboker chastecha, ve'emunatcha Balelot, Alei Asor Valei Nabel, Alei Higayon Bechinor, Mizmor Shir Leyom HaShabbat, Tov Lehodot Ladonai, Olezamer Leshimcha Elyon, Olezamer Leshimcha Elyon. And I wish for you to take that with you, that when we are talking, we're only delivering one portion of the message. But when we're singing, we're adding something else to the message. We sing, thank you. The English. It is good to sing to thank you, Adonai, and to sing to your name, Most High, to proclaim your love at daybreak, your faithfulness each night. Finger the lute, pluck the harp, let the sound of the lyre rise up. You gladden me with your deeds, Adonai, and I shall sing of your handiwork. How wonderful are your works, Adonai, how subtle your designs. The arrogant do not understand. The fool does not comprehend this. The wicked flourish like grass, and every evildoer blossoms only to be destroyed forever. But you, Adonai, are exalted for all time. Surely your enemies, Adonai, surely your enemies will perish. All who commit evil will be scattered. As a wild bull raises up its horn, you raised my head high, anointed it with fresh oil. As my enemies gather against me, my gaze remains steady, for my ears listen and hear. The righteous flourish like the date palm, thrive like a cedar in Lebanon, planted in the house of Adonai. They flourish in our God's courtyards. In old age they remain fruitful, still fresh and bountiful, proclaiming, Adonai is upright, my rock in whom there is no flaw. Rising the Borchu, please, on page number 39B. Page 39B. Baruch hu et Adonai hamavorach. Baruch Adonai Baruch le'olam va'ed. And we were seated. Do you know why we stand for Borchu? It's 2 lines. We stand for Baruch Hu and have been for perhaps 2,000 years because we want to teach each other, all of us, those who are assembled in congregation, that the Baruch Hu is very important. So for the paragraph, by the way, you can remain standing if you want to, but the comfortable seats are already here, so why not help yourselves? But whether you choose to stay for the bracha, the paragraph, which the bracha is a blessing, it's up to you. But the Baruch Hu, we stand. When we're saying Baruch Hu, we're talking to each other. Irvin, it's all Southern. We say, y'all, that's Baruch Hu, y'all bless. It's so Southern. Judaism was invented by Southerners. Y'all bless God. And then everybody says, Baruch, we're blessing God. We agree. So it's the interaction of the person who happens to be leading the service with the community that's very important, and that's why the tradition arose, perhaps 2,000 years ago, to stand at least minimally for those 2 lines. We're talking to each other about a core principle, and the core principle is that as Jews we come together, remind ourselves we have a relationship with God, but as each one of us walks individually in his or her own life, in his or her own way, we're all connected to a community. And that should sound familiar because what's the main prayer that comes after the Baruch Hu? The Shema. And what's the Shema? Shema means, you know this, what's the word? Hear. Shema Yisrael, we're talking to each other again, and we're saying, listen, O Israel, collectively, there is one core principle. God is ours shared. And now you understand how the Baruch Hu and the Shema work together. The first bracha on 39b. Baruch atah Adonai, our God, sovereign of time and space. You completed your work of creation on the 7th day, calling this day from one evening to the next the holy Shabbat, and gave this day of rest in all its holiness to your people Israel, creator of day and night, rolling light for darkness and darkness from light, making day pass and bringing on the evening, distinguishing day from night. Adonai Tzvaot is your name, living and ever-present God. May your rule be with us forever and ever. Baruch atah Adonai, who brings each evening's dusk. El chai v'kayam, tamidim lo chalen olam v'ed. Baruch atah Adonai, hama'ariv aravim. On page number 40. The left-hand margin. It's 4 stanzas. Look at the last 2 stanzas on page 40. At the circus, I saw a man tame a tiger, defang a snake. Would you make me so skilled? Bless me with patience. Make me strong as steel. that I might demonstrate to humanity such wonders. V'avotecha al tasir mimenu l'olamim, Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev amo Yisrael. 41. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shem Kvod Malchut Ha'olam Va'ed. V'yohavto et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzabecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha u'v'lechtecha v'derech u'v'shachbecha u'v'kumecha u'kishartam la'ot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot bein einecha u'ktavtam al mezuzot beitecha u'visharecha. A few moments of silence, perhaps some of the commentary on page 41 or the text on page 42, a few moments of silence. Adonai Elohechem emet. On page 44, Mi Chamocha. Mi Chamocha Boelim Adonai, Mi Chamocha Nedar Bakodesh Noratilot Ol Seifele Malchutecha Ra'u Vanecha Bokeh Yam Lifnei Moshe Ze'eli Anu Ve'amru Adonai Yimloch Le'olam Va'ed V'ne'emar Kifad Adonai et Yaakov Ugalo Miyad Chazak Mimenu Baruch Atah Adonai Ga'al Yisrael. On page 45, it's the left-hand marginal node, the canopy of peace. Peace comes to us and the recognition that when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, when we recognize that we cannot control everything, redemption can be achieved. The central image of this prayer is the sukkah of peace. The sukkah is a fragile structure, open to the elements. Peace is pictured not as a temple solidly built, gilded, perhaps ornate, but rather as created out of the most fragmentary of materials, leaving us vulnerable. Ufros aleinu sukkot shlomecha, baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukkot shalom aleinu, v'al kol amo Yisrael, v'al Yerushalayim. Tonight, Craig is joining us for Shamro on page 46. We've sung this melody before. Page 46 for Shamro.
V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et hashabat, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. ושם בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפל, שבת ויהי נפל. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, כמות פרקתי בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בגלה בגלה ובזמן קריב במהרו אמן. Yehi Shemei Rabba Mevarach La'alam Lial Me Almaya Yitbarach Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpar V'yitman V'yitnaseh V'yithadar V'yitale V'yitalal Shemei Dekudesha Brechu Leila Min Kol Berchata V'shirata Tushbechata V'nechemata Da'amiran B'olma V'yimeru Amen. We rise to the Silent Amida, pages 47 to 52. We're offering a personal, private meditation of our own devising. The Silent Amida. Page 51, the concluding bracha of the Mincha and Marv Amida every single day of the year is the Shalom Rav. Just a reminder, I take it for granted that most of us are familiar with a song of prayer. It goes like this: Sim, 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 shalom. Sim shalom is the morning version. Shalom Rav is the afternoon and evening version. And what we've surmised over the years with a little bit of study is that when the ancient Amida was becoming a prayer and was coalescing, 90-ish% of the prayer was agreed upon. But there were two prayers. I've talked about this, but then I'm not talking about Modi, I'm talking about Shalom. But there were two prayers. Frankly, there were two different versions of it. And one of those that had two versions was the prayer for peace. And so rather than excluding the composers of or the fans of one prayer of peace or the other, both were put in, and the Sim Shalom was recited, and still is, in the morning service, and the Shalom Rav is recited in the afternoon and evening service. And therefore, both composers and both schools of thought are recognized. How's that? Jews actually compromised once in a while. It's in the prayer book. So tonight is the prayer for peace, a Shalom Rav on page 51.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Hamcha ve'al kol yoshvei Tevel. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim le'olam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha ve'al kol yoshvei Tevel. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim le'olam. Ki ata hu melech adon lechol hashalom. Ki ata hu melech adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Yisrael Hamcha ve'hakol yoshvei Tevel. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Hamcha Tasim le'olam. V'tov beinecha levarech et amcha Beit Yisrael bechol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך.
Five days ago, Minette and I walked into the First Baptist Church of Montgomery. By the way, we're not church hopping. We're not church hopping. We're connected to Ahavas Chesed. I've been invited to participate in a prayer service. There was an inaugural prayer service, and 8 clergy were invited to the pulpit of First Baptist Church in Montgomery, which is Governor Kay Ivey's home church. She's been at this church for some 25 years, and she considers this her home church. The background is that 4 years ago was the first ever prayer service during the day of the inauguration festivities. Prior to that, there had been a prayer breakfast when clergy would come together and they'd have a prayer together and they'd eat together with the governor, and then she'd go off for the swearing in, or he would go off for the swearing in. And 4 years ago, an advisor suggested to then Governor Ivey a prayer service instead of the breakfast, and she liked the idea. And so this one, of course, 5 days ago was the second experience. And I was very moved. And I said this to the governor and the 200-ish people who were in the room, that it was meaningful that 8 different clergy, spanning a variety of denominations, were invited into her hometown church to offer a prayer. And separate from the high school group, which sang one song, and 4 minutes or so allotted to each one of us, that was it. That was the gist of the prayer service. It was a point of receiving caring words, sacred giving words from different people across many spectra throughout the state of Alabama. And I know it would have been not only, you might say, entirely open-minded. There is an element of political expediency. I appreciate that. There's nothing wrong with being politically expedient. But for her to want these differing traditions on the pulpit, including a rabbi, meant something, and still remains with me. And I said that to her, I appreciate that you wanted an opening prayer before you began the swearing-in ceremony and the gala that night from a number of different traditions in your home church. It's been with me the past few days, not only because it's the first time ever, probably the last, that I participated in an inauguration ceremony of some type, but also because it says something about acceptance. Now, Governor Ivy is a member of First Baptist Church for a reason. She's not going to become Jewish. But for her to be willing to have a variety of voices on that pulpit at her request, and the pastor of her church was there, indicates some element of acceptance of people who are different. Not necessarily agreement with, but acceptance of. I've been thinking about the 3 past Torah readings over the past 5 days. Because 3 Torah readings ago, a man whom you and I know as Joseph was accepted into the royal court. And he was elevated to great prominence. He became the viceroy. He was also the chairman of the Department of Agriculture, and he was the initiator of a brand new method of dispersing food to people all over the known world. So he was the CEO of Agribusiness, Inc. And along with all that came a new name, a name that most Jews don't remember. It's in the Torah. He was given a royal name by Pharaoh, Tzofnat Paneach. You don't have to remember that, Linda. Don't worry about that. Tzofnat Paneach. But as he was being accepted into royal circles with a new name and elevated stature, he was still very much a Hebrew, we would say a Jew. And he navigated that interaction between who he was and who, on a political expedient level, he needed to be. And he was recognized, and he was accepted. And he and his family, and then immediate descendants, were accepted and made a significant impact on the society. And then 190 years later, the political winds began to blow. And they blew differently. And you and I know, because of last week's Torah reading, and this week's Torah reading, and next week's Torah reading, wherein we encounter the beginning of the slavery and the significance of Moses and the plagues, and then 2 weeks from now, the Exodus, how when the political winds blew differently, there was a change. And the influence that had been so dramatic on the greatest nation in the world evaporated. And over the course of our history, over the course of many, many centuries, in many lands, there's been a cycle where Jewish people have moved into a community, lived, worked hard, integrated, prospered, gradually achieved station, rose higher and higher socioeconomically and politically, began to express influence, all for the better of society in which they dwelt. And then at some point, decades passed, and political winds began to blow differently yet again, to a point that Jewish people may have lost that influence, lost that acceptance, and then left, usually by force, all to repeat the cycle anew, again and again. And so here we're standing, where a rabbi was invited into the First Baptist Church of Montgomery, along with 6 other clergy. The same rabbi who was asked just a month ago to sing the Ma'ot Tzur as a Jewish coach kindled the Hanukkah first time ever in the governor's mansion. And I'm seeing and I'm appreciating the role of Jewish life, which has been in Alabama for 200 plus years, and acceptance. And yet I also know the challenges, the threats, the anti-Semitism which we all face, which we all experience, we all encounter. And I'm just wondering, and I don't have a conclusion to this comment, this is just an observation for a sermon. I don't have a conclusion. I'm hopeful. I want to be hopeful. I need to be hopeful. May we all be hopeful. May we see what happens in the years ahead, and may they be for good. We rise for the Aleinu. Page number 56, Aleinu. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, latet gedula liotzer breshit, shelo asanu k'goyei haratzot, velo samanu k'mishpachot adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim u'mishtachavim u'modim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu shehu noteh shamayim v'yoser haaretz u'moshav yekaro b'shamayim mimal u'shchinatu zo b'gavhei miromim hu Eloheinu enod emet malkeinu efes zulatom kakatu b'toratom v'yadata hayom v'ashevota el levavecha ki Adonai hu Elohim b'shamayim mimal v'al haaretz mitachot enod. Kakatu b'toratecha Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed v'nemar v'hayim Vaya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yihye Adonai echad u'shema echad. In a moment, the Mourner's Kaddish on page number 58. And on this Shabbat, we remember with great love Rose Gerhardt, Cheryl Chasson, Rhoda Herzog, Molly Kahn, Marcia Roberts, Morris Klarman, Morris Olensky, Jacob Kramer, Joe Lava, Ralph Weed, Herman Collette, Fanny Silverstein, Samuel Leventhal, Bernice Davidoff, remembering Wendy Fastman, LaClaudia Thomas, Ronald Hoffman. Are there any other names to mention this evening? Herman Grodsky. And perhaps at home, someone joining in has a name to share as well. Those so inclined are invited to rise for Kaddish, page 58. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba, Amen. Be'olma tivra chirute v'yamlich malchute. B'chaye chon of yomei chon, u'v'chaye dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala v'zman kariv v'imeru, Amen. Yehei shmei Rabba mivarach la'olam l'olmei olmayam. Yitborach v'yishtabach v'yitpar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitale v'yithalal shmei dekudesha b'richu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran ba'alma v'imeru, Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min Shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imeru, Amen. Useh shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imeru, Amen. When we read these names of our loved ones, and people stand up, and if they're not able to stand up because of a medical issue, then they remain seated. And people are in their own minds focusing on this prayer. Through the names of their loved ones, this prayer becomes their own. It becomes owned by the reciter. This is your prayer. And then on another occasion, it becomes somebody else's, because we say somebody else's name. And then on another occasion, it becomes somebody else's prayer. And this prayer is shared now for the past 1,800 years all over the world. And wherever we are, we're able to say Amen to the person or persons who owns that prayer for that occasion. So we're paying attention to each other and how each other remembers the names of loved ones with love. Through a shared prayer that's your own. Think about how meaningful that is. We'll conclude the service tonight with the last line, which is the Oseh Shalom. Only one announcement. Please remember that the MAJF is sponsoring the ongoing film festival. And look into attending and participating in the varying films in the days ahead. We'll conclude with Oseh Shalom, and then we have Kiddush and Motzi here at the doorway. Oseh Shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imro, emro, amen. Hey, ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom. Shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Hey, ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom. Shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Ve'imro amen. Peace. We rise for Kiddush and Motzi. We've got wine and grape juice, and people are invited to pour their own. We'll make Kiddush in a moment. The Kiddush will be in the Siddur, and happens to be here in the Siddur on page number 55. And maybe those joining in also have a glass of wine and maybe a bit of bread, and we'll say the Hamotzi together in just a minute. We invite those joining in at home to sing along with.
I got something. So, yeah. Do what you want. It's better to stay away from her. Yeah. It's the winter. What? Did you didn't give me coffee? Well,
So on page 55, while we're pouring, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho v'ahava uv'ratzon hinchilanu zikaron l'maaseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila l'mikra'ei kodesh zecher l'tziat mitzroyim kivanu v'charta v'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim v'shabbat kodshecha v'ahava uv'ratzon hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai Mikadesh HaShabbat. A bit of challah, a bit of hamotzi, and perhaps those joining at home have a hamotzi as well. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. To those joining at home, thank you, Shabbat Shalom, and we hope to see you at some point in the near future.